Well, I think the Bob Iger news is both very welcome, and in a day and weeks of totally surprising news, it's probably the least surprising news and most expected news you can have. Because, of course, Disney would want to extend him, and I can see why Bob, who really loves what he's doing, would be able to do it. As you say, he's been about premium content. He bought Pixar. He bought Marvel. He bought Lucasfilm. And I remember Michael Eisner, who was the outgoing CEO or just left, thought the Pixar animation studio acquisition was insane because of the price, even went to the board and said so. Bob Iger turned out to be right. In this day when you're going to be, in these days when you're going to be unbundling the cable model, as Jim Stewart said, that's the biggest challenge Disney faces. You want at your helm somebody like Bob Iger, who knows that in the end, having the premium content is going to be what protects you in a world when people can go anywhere and get anything. And certainly when YouTube is putting on content that's destructive and denigrating, and now people are fleeing it, you protect your brand of Disney, which is one of the great brands of the century, and you protect your business model if you're somebody like Bob Iger who understands good and premium content.
Is 2 years long enough to see this content versus technology thing really more come to a head? You mentioned the sort of unbundling of content. Netflix has its model. We see technology companies like Apple and Amazon trying to move more into the content space. Are we going to see Bob Iger kind of play his fuller hand in that environment?
I think the big thing Bob Iger can do is say, what do you go to when you're in a post-cable bundled model? What ABC and Disney have done is, unlike, say, the network we're talking on right now, decided at ABC Disney not to own the pipes, not to own the distribution. This can give you more flexibility. The question is, what do you do with that flexibility? How do you invent new ways of going direct to the consumer? That's going to be Bob's big challenge, not only doing it himself, but finding a successor who's going to bring us to that next generation of on-demand, anywhere-you-want content. But I think he'll lay the foundation for that by having things like Marvel Entertainment and all the things Disney produces, including ESPN, which people really want to see.
Walter, if we look at Bob Iger's bigger initiative, which has been taking Disney overseas, specifically in China, which I was just looking at box office sales. If you look at Beauty and the Beast, sales in China, that was its single biggest contributor to foreign ticket sales. But there are now also questions about this uncertainty around the future of relations between U.S. and China. Do you think that could impact Disney's growth in this big market?
I think Disney is probably less susceptible to having problems, except for if there's an intellectual property trade war and China goes back to being able to rip off intellectual property with impunity. I know I saw Bob Iger when he was in town a week or two ago for the opening of Beauty and the Beast on Broadway. I mean, who would have, I mean, this is a pretty good brand, Disney, but who would have thunk that you could have a brand like Beauty and the Beast that would become a global brand from Broadway to Beijing? So I think the thing about Disney and about Bob Iger is that he's covered his bets. He's hedged his bets. If ESPN has a bad quarter, the studio still does well. If China has a bad period, Broadway does well. But I don't think he's as susceptible to problems with China as other trade partners would be.
Hey there, thanks for checking out CNBC on YouTube. Be sure to subscribe to stay up to date on all of the day's biggest stories. You can also click on any of the videos around me to watch the latest from CNBC. Thanks for watching.